All right, let's just jump right into this. So I don't have anything prepared. I'm just playing around with the Radium Sampler, just because more people are starting to use it, and I haven't really had a chance to do the documentation or anything yet. So I should start by saying I am running a debug version of Soundminer that's got a bunch of things that obviously won't be in the release version, things like this, and like little debug menus. So if you see something that isn't in your version, don't panic. It just means that I've got a version up that's got some special things in. So let's do search for elephants in the room. So there's Brett's library here. So I'll start off with showing some of the things that are pretty cool, what make Radium like different than a music sampler. Just move this out of the way for a second. So I can find a sound, pitch it down. In this case, I've chosen track 2 of the sound, and then in the sampler, I just click load, and that sound is now loaded up. Now, traditionally with samplers, what you'd have to do if you're using a librarian program is you'd have to render that audio to disk, because I've pitched it, I've chosen a section of the sound. So I would have to render that to disk and then import it in and then key map it and do all that kind of stuff. Because this is so tightly integrated and it's meant to be able to be locked in together. It's just as easy as hitting a button, or you can hit this button or a controller. I've got it on this key right here. And it will load in. And of course you can adjust your start and end points that easily. And then let's just say I just bring back all just to lose that original sound. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe I should have grabbed it in stereo. I can click this recall sound button here, and it recalls the sound as well as the pitch and any like adjustments I did, and then I could just mark a new section and load it in. So that's pretty cool, that kind of integration, I think. Let's talk about some of the other things down here. So you've got all these envelopes, and this is, you can think of this as volume automation. Again, something you can't really do inside a regular sampler. In a regular sampler, you've got your Adsr envelope, which A is your attack, how long it takes for it to get up to volume, the decay after you, and sustain and release is just when I tap the key, how long before it finishes. And if I do this, you can hear it's clicking. I can apply a fade. So no matter what, even if I hold the note down, that fade is always going to get executed. So I don't have to worry about clicks and pops. So that's pretty cool. So let's get to the Amplitude Envelope again. So this allows me to draw in whatever envelope I want. I can put curves in. I did that by holding the Option key. I've got a PC keyboard, so my labels are a bit messed up. You can hold the Shift key down and just kind of like move it around. But the nice thing about this is it's timed to the sample. So let me just do this. Get rid of this point by hitting Control. If you Control click, it will delete points. So I've got it kind of ramping up, and it doesn't matter where I play on the keyboard. That automation is always going to happen, and even multi-timbrally. So it's, just think of it as that. It's almost like clip automation, and each time you trigger, it's a clip. So that's good, so you can sort of customize how the sound is going to be played as you go. And this is the pitch envelope. So this allows you to draw in the pitch. And same thing, it's timed the actual sample. So if at this point in the sound I wanted it to come crashing down, we could just do this. Probably do something a bit more finesse. And it's live, so if I had loop on, why don't I turn loop on? So I'll go forward loop. I'm going to change my end point, my start point. So now, do all kinds of crazy stuff. So that's that envelope. And again, that's timed to the sound as well, or like where you actually play it on the keyboard. Then you've got these envelopes, and these are multi-purpose envelopes, which allow you to, same kind of thing. As it crosses a certain point, it's going to trigger something. And you can use these envelopes to control a lot of these built-in effects, which are down here. I'll just show you real quick what that does. So I'm just going to add, it's going to get its source from envelope number 1. The destination, we'll set it to the panner. I'll just turn the panner on, and by default, it's going to be panned all the way to the right. You can see that there. So if I do it here, it's going to pan all the way to the left. And center, obviously, would be somewhere in the middle. So that allows you to draw in all kinds of like panning automation if you want. Now, something special you kind of have to say about this, which makes it different than amplitude and pitch, is that even though it tracks where I play on the keyboard, so it's always going to execute it, because there's only one stereo panner assigned to this slot, if I was to hit a chord or do any sort of multi-timbral stuff, the last note takes hold of the envelope. Because otherwise what would be happening is everything would be playing at a slightly different time. So the panner would just be jerking all over the place as it's crossing all these different points. So a note has to be an owner of the envelope. So in this case, it's just one. That note is the owner. If I go up high, you can see it's hidden nice and fast on the pan. And then that second note that I've hit has become the owner, and it's taken control of the envelope. So slow, and then my other note comes in, and it takes care of the envelope, or takes ownership of the envelope. So that's what the envelopes do, and you've got 2 of them. They can be assigned anywhere. I'll get more into what these controls actually do a bit later if I have time. LFO, these are low frequency oscillators. So these repeat over time. So this is the shape. So you can think of this as a sine wave. It's just going to go up and down and up and down and up and down. So let's just choose the LFO1. We'll do it to pan again, and you can actually see it's happening. And it's the same thing as the envelope 1 right now, because these sounds, or the envelope, re-triggers on note on. So you can see it jump. That's because the start of the LFO is when the panner is on the far right. Now, I'm going to make it an option so that it's sort of free-flowing, so it doesn't re-trigger. But for right now, the LFO re-triggers. So even though there isn't an ownership on the envelope, there is a re-trigger. So when you hit a note, you can see it re-triggers the LFO. Now the LFOs, they can be any shape you want. There's some presets here. So there's the sine wave, square wave, triangle wave, and finally the sawtooth wave. But you can draw in your own oscillators, or your own oscillator shapes, which is kind of a unique feature, I think. I think things like Serum do that, but I don't know of many samplers, if there is any, that do that kind of thing. And now I can speed up that oscillator by using this little dial here, or I can slow it down. So right now, as it goes up, the pan is going to the right. But I can change that as well, because depending on what you want to automate, sometimes you want things to go up, sometimes you want things to go down. And so this phase button changes that. So now when I hit that note, it's going to go in the other direction. So that's basically that in a nutshell. What else can we talk about? So there's all kinds of different loops as well. So there's the forward looping, there's the play, then loop backwards. Oh, mouse posé, quit, whatever. We just relaunch that again. I like seeing my mouse clicks. There we go. Okay, so play, then loop backwards. So we'll go from the start point. Loop backwards. Backwards looping, which will just start at the loop endpoint. Forward, backwards. And one shot, which is even if I just tap the key and even if I've got like a really short release time, it's going to play the entire sample. So that's that. What else have we got? So you've got your tuning, so you can tune it by octaves. So it just depends when you hit middle C where it's going to be. So octaves, semitones. I'm going to take that one shot off there. Cents. Now, the thing to note about these, you can double click most controls and they go back to the default. One thing to say about these is it gets picked up when you hit the note on. So if I've got it on loop and I start adjusting these, you're not going to hear anything. It's not a live setting. It's meant to be like, okay, yeah, I want this one to be pitched way down. What this does, this is your sort of your live one, which allows you to do those kind of things, as though you had a modulation wheel. Be the exact same thing. But the cool thing about this is that's what you can use as a modulation source. So if I go to LFO again, and I'll change this now to be my pitch modulation, that is this one. And why aren't you working? Oh, because I cleared the LFO. So call the sine wave up again. So that's what that is doing. And the range allows me to narrow in on how much of that is going to be affected. So if I just wanted everything to be in the upper half, it would be like that. Lower half would be. And then all around normal would just be around the center point. So you can get some strange modulation happening there. So I'll just turn this off, reset that. So let's talk about some of the layering and all of that kind of stuff, how it happens. So locale, odd engines. Okay, we'll just grab this, throw it in. I've got amplitude, why not? I'll just clear all my slots just to reset everything that I've done, reload it. There we go. So, you've got 5 slots, and you can fill these with anything you want. Let's find something a bit different. Okay, we'll load that in. So you can solo each layer. You can mute layers. If you have different MIDI channels, anything that's coming in on MIDI channel 1 goes to all of the slots, so they all play. But you can set, I think I can go MIDI channel 2, and then it will just play, sort of solo that track. So that's one kind of fun thing. So I can go MIDI channel 3, and it would just do whatever is on channel 3. I think. I have to check how I program that. Anyway, back to MIDI channel 1. So we can ramp this one up. We'll get some looping going. So we'll do the old forward loop, forward backwards loop. See what that sounds like. Terrible about forward looping. Same thing for this. We'll get some looping on it. Obviously, I have to improve on all of this kind of stuff. You can think of this as like I'm just laying the foundation. I think everything is in the program now, and obviously there's lots of room for little improvements and things. One little thing is you can use your mouse wheel to adjust these. If you hold the control key down, is it the control? Command key down, it'll be finite increments. So we'll just keep playing around and see what we can come up with here. Okay, that's cool. So now I'm going to recall this sound. I'm going to go to slot 3. I'm going to pitch it down a little bit. And load that in. Can we do? Let's throw a saturator on the sound. And same thing, kind of ramp up into it. Let's throw some modulation on for fun. Again, this, I'm not really trying to create anything wonderful or good. I'm just playing around and showing off like what all these things can kind of do. So we're going to go with an LFO on the shuffler. So LFO to the shuffler, and it's going to be frequency. So what the shuffler does is pans left and right. And that's the frequency that it's panning at. So if I can go really slow. You can hear how it adds a sort of a wobble. Okay, let's see how I like that. And we'll call up some plugins. So I'm going to go waves. What should we use? I'll just choose reverb. And I'm going to do some MIDI learning. And everything is all kind of coming in. This is where I choose my MIDI device. Everything is coming up from there. So I'm going to learn, get this out of the way. I'm going to learn the wet-dry slider. So I move my controller, and I move this, and now that's now learnt. So that's one thing. I don't know what else we can do. Throw some distortion on. Crazy. That's not at all nice to listen to. What other things can I talk about? Well, so let's say I like this. I can toggle the preset load area, and I'll just export it. Now there's two different types. I can export just the preset, or the patch. I'm sorry. I should export the patch, which will be very fast. It's just a small little file. and it references my original sound files that are on the disk. So when I load this up, all it is just the information of where to get that sound, what channels I used, everything I need to sort of recreate it. Now, if I wanted to send this to somebody, I could export it as a preset. And this is going to, we'll call it engine. This is something that someone could just drag onto Soundminer and it will recall. And it's got everything it needs to recreate the sound. It's got all of the audio files, it's got all of the patch information. It doesn't have the VST plugins, but everything that's inside the Radium Sampler is there. So now I've got the sound and I like it and I want to use it. So what I do is I click on record here. It's going to ask me where I want to save it because my transfer path is invalid at the moment. So I'll just save it on my desktop. Just go delete me. There we go. So now it's waiting for my first MIDI note on. And as soon as I do that, and then when I'm done, I just click off record, and then it swaps me back into the player here, and from there I could, I could just transfer it directly into Pro Tools if I wanted, or into Reaper, or whatever it is that I'm using. So it records everything that's inside the sampler, as well as what I did performance-wise on the plugin rack. So you can hear the reverb increasing there. And that's it. I think that'll do for now. The cats need to be fed. All right.